Morning everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Catherine's monthly news Roundup Rant, which I'm recording actually on today, which is the 27th, Friday 27th, and it's going out tomorrow morning, so it is really fresh, hot off the press. I can't guarantee I'm going to get everything in, right? Okay, because I've made a few notes, but I haven't written everything down. I don't watch the news every day. I'm not that obsessed. So if you're like me, you kind of want to dip in and dip out, because you know what, the news can be pretty miserable, can't it? So I thought I'd try and liven it up a little bit. So if you want to catch a glimpse of some of the things that are going on in the world, then have a listen to this every month. You don't have to switch on the TV and bother listening to all the negative, horrible things. Obviously, there's a kind of war going on. I'm not going to mention that. I'm just going to skip over that. It is what it is, isn't it? I'm not even going to go there. That's not my job. What I'm here to do, though, is make everything a little bit more lighthearted for you guys. Okay, so first of all, one thing to notice, it is 8:30 in the morning. Is it 8:30 in the morning? I'm not actually sure. Yeah, it's actually 8:10 in the morning. I'm really bright and breezy and excited and full of life. The sun's out. It's a bit nippy, chilly. I've actually had to put the heating on already for just a half an hour. And you may have seen all of my social media stuff about managing food on a budget. I basically challenge myself. I have different pots of budget amount that I spend each month on things. I have a spreadsheet where I know what comes in and I know what costs are going out, which makes it really easy to manage your money. It also means it's a lot less stressful. And so this week, I got to the end of the month, basically, and I thought, I've only got £24 left in my food budget. Now, in reality, I could have bought some shopping on my credit card, but then I've got to then look to a way. I just paid for a holiday, so I've then got to think, well, that's an additional cost, and I can't pay for my holiday, and so there's like lots of other things. So I thought, well, actually, shall I challenge myself and not do that, not put something on the credit card, and see if I can manage to last the whole week with £24. Okay, because I'm a single person. I've got a house, a pony. I do work 2 jobs. I know it's tough. I think reality set in when I was doing my sort of a podcast. I've been doing some stuff for Marie Curie as well. And I was kind of thinking about it. I did a speaker course about a year or so ago. And I was kind of thinking, well, if they asked me to do any speaking, what would I say? I thought, well, actually, you know what? I could kind of start by sort of like talking about the fact that, well, if I died tomorrow, I don't have enough in the bank to pay for my own funeral. And that was a little bit scary when I kind of thought about that. So I've been chatting about that. But anyway, that's not what I want to talk about today. What I was trying to just get the message across is that I've been eating some fantastic meals with the £24. Okay. And I feel great. I haven't had any coffee this morning, mainly because I've run out and I haven't had a chance to go and buy any yet, just because I've been so busy. So the fact that I am this bouncy and bubbly just from eating fantastic food, kind of like, it shows you that actually you can eat really, really healthily on a really small budget, okay? Because there's no processed food in there. It was all like natural products. So I'll be continuing a little bit more about that on my social media. So check that all out. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look. It's Catherine Lorimer's Guide to Life podcast, which is obviously quite, as it would be. Right, so what's annoyed me in the news this week? Okay, waste from festivals. I did a social media clip. I went to the beach and there was so much rubbish on it after bank holiday and people had left like shoes and buckets. What world are we living in where you don't pick up the things that you've bought and take them home with you? And then we just reuse them and waste money on stuff like that. And it's absolutely disgraceful. I mean, who do you think is going to come and pick all this stuff up? What actually happened was the seagulls were then pecking at everything, scattering it all over the beach, and then the tide would have come in and washed half of it out to sea. And we kind of wonder where all the rubbish comes from. Well, that was really annoyed me. But then I saw some images from festivals and they're absolutely shockingly disgraceful. People haven't taken their tents home with them. What are you thinking? It's such a waste. Complete waste of resources that have gone into making those products. You've spent money on buying them. And it just shows you we have become a appallingly throwaway society. And I'll probably get, pounded on social media for my views on that. Do you know what? I actually don't really care anymore because it was really quite disgraceful. So talking about views on social media, Big thing that came up this week that I noticed was let's have a little look. Yeah, police arrested a writer for 3 tweets, and it was a writer of Father Ted. It's a great show. I mean, I don't know what his tweets are. There's probably always a little bit more to that. But it did seem a little bit excessive. And then people also started sort of like saying, well, the police seem to be kind of like focusing a lot a bit on online hatred, which, it's kind of a balance, isn't it? Because one minute, the police kind of like are being told off because they're not policing online hatred. And that's leading to loads of things, horrible things happening and people inciting violence. So you've got to actually be seen to policing it. So you've actually got to arrest high profile figures like that make the news, that'll make people think about what they're putting online. Okay. And the other thing is, so now, of course, they're kind of like saying, okay, policing social media, there's like loads of things out there, other people breaking the law, shouldn't they be focusing on that? Well, another thing is they've actually got targets to meet, and it's probably a lot easier to meet those targets, if we just go and, police online crimes, because, at the end of the day, there's kind of an evidence trail left for you, okay, on social media. If you follow it, you can see what's been going on, because it's published, it's out there. So, that's kind of a thing as well. So, hey, you've got like criminals and it's quite difficult, investigating things takes a long time. You need lots of evidence because you've got to have enough evidence to ensure that you've got a prosecution at the end of the day. And if so if you've got a trail on social media that some person has very kindly already put up there, well, it's kind of like it's already there, isn't it? It's there, it's out there, so it makes their job quite easy and more straightforward. So I don't really know why everyone's moaning about that. At the end of the day, if we all started behaving ourselves and saying things on social media that were nice and being nice to each other, then myself included, I've had rants. That's why I've taken myself off Twitter. It's not a healthy space at all. It's just not. And so, because you just kind of get, I don't know, you kind of become like Chinese whispers, and you say whatever you think in your mind, which actually is not necessarily a good thing at all to do. Okay, so another story I saw, which came across, and I came across it. A Sydney grandfather accidentally took home the wrong child. Okay, now I did actually. I mean, I probably shouldn't have laughed about this, but it is a little bit funny. I mean, obviously it wasn't, because the parents concerned were probably thinking that someone has abducted their child, which is obviously really, really serious. But sometimes in life, serious things do happen, and the way that we deal with them is humour. We have to laugh about it, because otherwise you'd actually drive yourself a little bit crazy, and you have to see the humour in things like that. I think particularly anybody who works in the NHS or the fire and police services or the armed forces will understand that actually there's some pretty horrific things that are out there. You could become a little bit desensitized to them. And the way that you actually have to kind of process them as a human being is to laugh about them and see the humour in it, in the bizarre situation that you sometimes find yourself in, because it's like a coping mechanism. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know how that happens. I mean, surely, I mean, you just know the jokes are going to come out, don't you? Every single Christmas, every time it goes to the nursery, just make sure you pick up the right child. That's kind of a message out there, isn't it? Okay, my favourite story this week, or this month even, although it's a sad one, it was a death of an inspirational Duchess of Kent. All right, she gave up her royal life, okay, and became a music teacher. I didn't know that, okay? And I read the article and I thought, well, do you know what? That's pretty inspiring, isn't it? She wasn't really interested in the whole kind of like being famous, being rich, being royal, just because at the end of the day, she realised that actually those things are quite superficial and they don't really matter. And the thing that mattered most to her was something that she felt passionate about, which was teaching music. It was a beautiful story. It was just absolutely fantastic. It was just great. Minister. Yeah, that's it. So we had politics. Got a bit of politics in there, haven't we? Angela Rayner. Yeah. Do you remember that? It was, you're probably listening to this. It's old news now, isn't it? It's already in the bin, lining the papers. We've forgotten all about it. I have anyway until reading up my notes that I've written. Thankfully, I have. Angela Rayner, she's resigned over, it was some sort of property tax thing, wasn't it? From what I can gather, okay, and we thought she was safe, but then she, after a few days, she ended up resigning, didn't she? So what I can gather is she was left a house in trust, I'm assuming by her parents, and then she bought another house in, which may be that she might, I mean, I don't even know the details. I have no idea. But possibly it could be that, and it's something that I maybe need to be careful of as well, because sometimes what parents do is they leave one house in trust while the other parent's still alive, and that might have happened. And you'd actually assume that the house then still belonged to the parent who was living, but it probably doesn't. It probably belongs to the child at that point then, doesn't it? So then when she bought her essentially then second home, she should have paid tax on it because she technically already had one in trust as her first home. And do you know what? That's a really complex legal matter. So there's a possibility if I bought another home, well, I'd got my parents' house in trust, which is, it seems kind of a bit wrong. So actually that probably needs looking at, doesn't it? Those laws don't really clearly work as they are, and probably needs a little bit of attention. Someone to go, right, okay, hang on, we need to rewrite that law, because it's a little bit crazy because you kind of like, you've inherited a house in trust, but you're not actually living in it because you can't live it because your parent, the remaining parent, is living in it. Well, that's what I'm assuming anyway. It kind of makes sense because otherwise, if you had, that's the only way you'd inherit a house in trust is from like a relative who's died. So that kind of like, and to be fair to her, that's actually a little bit kind of like mean, because that's a really complex legal matter, which I think a lot of people probably wouldn't, kind of know about. And it's only because someone's been really, really digging into all of the detail that they'll have found out all that information. And I'm like, seriously, guys, come on, sometimes it's so underhand and disgraceful, and it really is awful. And she was, having a really good effect. This is a person's life and career, and she worked really, really hard to get to that place. And I actually, I think it was particularly bad. I don't think she's done anything particularly wrong. I just think it was a really complex legal matter. She may or may not have sought legal advice on it. She probably didn't, because she probably didn't even realise that being left a house in trust actually means that you own the house. Well, I suppose it does, but I wouldn't have thought that either. So come on, give people a break. Stop being so harsh on people like that. I think it's absolutely disgraceful. Really do. So what else has been in the news? Okay. Well, should we go for it? Trump. Okay. He came over for a state visit, didn't he? Yeah. And there's a really nice picture, actually, of the four of them. Was it, what's his wife's name? Melinda. Okay, I'm going to try and find it now. I'm just to make sure I've got the dress colour right. Yeah, that was it. So there's a nice picture of them. There's a picture of Camilla in blue, King Charles even in blue, Trump and Melinda in yellow. So when I saw the yellow dress, I kind of thought, how much did you think about wearing an orange one and see if you could get a dress to match Donald Trump? I just look at him and I just think, USA, you have been tangoed. Right, that's all I'm saying about Trump. There's just so much out there, but I'm not going to spend that much time on him. Okay, so we'll switch to today's news, shall we? So Keir Starmer wants to introduce digital IDs. Okay, something that they tried to introduce way back when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, but people kind of went, no, we're not doing that. We can't possibly do that. And then complained heavily that, there's loads of illegal immigrants because we don't have ID cards, okay? Showing that you've got a right to work in the UK, and everything's getting digitalised. And at the moment, like, a lot of people checks are done with paper copies. Okay, so that's all going to be changing. We're all moving online. We've all got smartphones. Well, a lot of us have anyway. And, it is going to be a case of like everything's digitalized. So you're going to have an ID card on your smartphone at some point. That's how it's going to happen, because it's the only way we can actually track people. It will also basically clamp down on anybody who is tax dodging. Okay. So if you've got an ID card, you'll have to use one probably to get into the country. You'll be fingerprinted. I think they've said that from Europe. So we can keep track of everybody. We know where everyone is. So there's no kind of like coming here, going there. Yeah, so that'll stop some people's antics, won't it? Now, but there's obviously always going to be kind of an opposite view to that. The Tories are always going to oppose everything that Labour says. And I find that really irritating sometimes, because they're just trying to politically point score against each other, without actually, when actually it's actually a reasonable solution to all the migrants coming in that the Tory government didn't even think about. So you can't really argue with that. Just because you didn't think of it, there's no point, to put it down, because that's their job. They have to criticise, Labour. But that's the problem. Are they actually holding the Prime Minister to account over this and questioning them and talking it all through and saying, well, actually, how's it going to work? And isn't that what we should be doing in the Houses of Parliament? Shouldn't we be saying to Keir Starmer, okay, right, so how's it going to work? What's going to happen? What's going to be the process? Have you thought it all through? And what the logistics of it? Instead, they just say, oh, no, it's a really bad idea. And I just think you just spend all your time criticising the other people and making personal remarks about the actual person. I just think, oh, don't do it. Stop. Okay, so I'm going to touch on the Charlie Kirk assassination. Whatever your political views are, okay, I know he was a big kind of supporter of Trump. He's not my favourite person, Trump. But at the end of the day, people are allowed to have their views. Everybody's views should be acknowledged and accepted. And actually, do we have the right to challenge those views? Not when it becomes, such a thing. And I think this is where maybe social media has actually got a part to play in this, with everybody ranting about certain things. And you kind of think, put your phone down, stop ranting, get out and enjoy your life. Rather than spending time having a go at somebody because of what they think and, or what they are and what their views on. At the end of the day, focus on your own life and look at yourself. That's what you probably should be doing. And it was somebody shot and killed someone's dad in front of their 2 young children and wife. I mean, that's absolutely, it's horrific. These poor 2 children are just gonna, that's something that they will never recover from. You have essentially destroyed those poor kids' lives forever, because no matter how much therapy, it's just never going to bring their dad back or let them forget that whole thing. And it's just, it's absolutely appalling. It really, really is. Just because somebody, had a thought about something, and was, wanted to speak up and wanted to say something. And as I say, I don't agree with the views. They're quite extreme, far right-ish, apparently, or not, maybe far right. I haven't even looked into him, to be honest with you. I don't even know much about what he said and what he was for. And the fact that he was a supporter of Trump says enough for me, not to want to bother, if I'm honest. But the fact that somebody's actually gone out and shot him for what he thinks and for going out and speaking to people, that's not the way to do things. You have no right as a human being to take another person's life. It's not your job. It's not you should never do that. It's not what God intended. We were all born, okay, and we all will die at some point. Hopefully most of us have natural causes. And to end someone's life purely because of what they think about things is wrong. But also, how in society do these people escape and get hold of a gun? Okay, we keep seeing it in America, don't we? It's out there all the time. It's probably never going to change. Thankfully, we don't have that law in the UK. We're a little bit more sensible, rather than trigger happy. But there we go. That we are where we are. And then, of course, everyone's being then sensitised. The presenter was taken off air. I can't remember his name, just for having his views about things and speaking them on air. And it's the same with Gary Lineker. I mean, the public actually voted, because that was the big news, wasn't it, of this month as well. Gary Lineker actually won Ant and Dec's award. Is it like presenters on TV? I can't remember. It's whatever award that they've been winning for the past 23 years running. Okay. And Gary Lineker has won it. And he was quite happy about winning it and taking it off them. But actually, that was the people showing that we support Gary Lineker. And actually, he is in the position to have a voice. And he should be voicing, the things or, the thoughts of other people who don't have the same voice. And you can't really argue with that, whether or not you agree with his views. He's actually supporting people who don't have a say. And why does that make him a bad person? It's absolutely ludicrous. Okay, so there is kind of like something that I kind of like wanted to put out there as well. I kind of like, I'm moaning about, my having to spend £24 on, or only having to spend £24 on food a week, and I've got everything I need and I've got really, really healthy meals. We have to have a look around the world because we do waste a lot of food. We look at the dates on them and are governed by them, and then we chuck everything in the bin. But actually, as long as it smells okay and it's not really mouldy, then it's probably okay to eat it. That's only kind of like a guide. The only thing really is kind of like meat and dairy produce. You're not really going to harm yourself if you have like a box of strawberries and and the date's kind of like 2 days after the date. I don't even check the date on strawberries, but realistically, you take the strawberries out, you wash them, you check them all over, and any bits that are a bit dodgy, you cut them off, or if there's a mouldy one, you chuck it in the bin. We just, and when you kind of like, people in Gaza are actually starving. They don't have any food. Okay. So, let's just try and be a little bit less wasteful about what we use and just think a little bit more. Are those dates important, really? Actually use a little bit more common sense. And you don't have to worry too much about the date. Try it, taste it. If it tastes rank, it's off, chuck it in the bin. But actually, why are we getting to the stage where things are out of date? My amazing partner, he's always checking the dates on things. And if things are going out of date, he eats them or uses them up. So they're not wasted. Okay, which is, that's really, really good. And also you'll see, I did actually make, I had some old things. I had some old bread in the freezer, loads of it. And I know I'm going off the news topic, but I suppose it is still news. Hey, it's my news. And I had some like chocolate. I tend to I smash up a bar of plain chocolate. And so if I do want to have a chocolate craving, which actually now I'm eating a lot healthier, is becoming less and less, then I can help myself to it. And I had some leftovers, so I made like a chocolate bread and butter pudding with all these kind of leftover stuff, because it only needs an egg, a couple of eggs, some milk, and some cocoa powder, and then some chocolate kind of in, and I kind of left it all soaking. Put a bit of Baileys in there as well, although not enough apparently. and it was, that was like a great sort of like dessert, which then lasted for like quite a few days, and I did some really different things with it. So I'm going to have a look for my social media, because the time this is up there, then it should be on there next week anyway. Okay, guys, so that's all the news that I've kind of made a note of this week that I kind of want to chat about. Everything else, there are some really horrible things out there, but don't dwell on it too much. Just appreciate what you've got in life and in this particular present moment, and get out there and enjoy yourself. I would say we only live once, but I don't think that's necessarily true anymore. So actually just go out and live the life that you are living right now. And have a good week, everyone.